Ready? Start. A decade has passed since the Street Vendors Protection of Livelihood and Regulation of Street Vending Act came into effect on May 1st, 2014, marking a significant milestone after nearly 4 decades of legal jurisprudence and the tireless efforts of street vendor movements across India. Celebrated as a progressive legislation, the Act now faces numerous challenges in its implementation. Looking back, the mere enactment of a law did not ensure the protection and security of street vendors in Indian cities. There was much to be desired in its execution. Street vendors, estimated to constitute 2.5% of any city's population, play multifaceted roles in city life. Local vegetable sellers and food vendors are essential providers of daily services. Vending offers many migrants and the urban poor a source of modest yet consistent income. The vendors also make city life affordable for others by providing vital links in the food, nutrition, and goods distribution chain at reasonable prices. Street vendors are also integral to Indian culture. Imagine Mumbai without its vada pav or Chennai without its roadside dosai. The law was enacted to acknowledge this reality. It aimed to protect and regulate street vending in cities with state level rules and schemes and execution by urban local bodies ULBs through bylaws, planning, and regulation. The Act clearly delineates the roles and responsibilities of both vendors at various levels of government. It recognizes the positive urban role of vendors and the need for livelihood protection. It commits to accommodating all existing vendors in vending zones and issuing vending certificates. The Act establishes a participatory governance structure through town vending committees TVCs and mandates that street vendor representatives must constitute 40% of TVC members with a sub-representation of 33% of women street vendors. These committees are tasked with ensuring the inclusion of all existing vendors in vending zones. Additionally, the Act outlines mechanisms for addressing grievances and disputes, proposing the establishment of a grievance redressal committee chaired by a civil judge or judicial magistrate. Its provisions set a crucial precedent for inclusive and participatory approaches to address street vending needs in cities, at least in theory. However, the Act has faced three broad challenges. First, at the administrative level, there has been a noticeable increase in harassment and evictions of street vendors despite the Act's emphasis on their protection and regulation. This is often due to an outdated bureaucratic mindset that views vendors as illegal entities to be cleared. There is also a pervasive lack of awareness and sensitization about the Act among state authorities, the wider public, and vendors themselves. TVCs often remain under the control of local city authorities with limited influence from street vendor representatives, and the representation of women vendors in TVCs is mostly tokenistic. Second, at the governance level, existing urban governance mechanisms are often weak. The Act does not integrate well with the framework established by the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act for Urban Governance. ULBs lack sufficient powers and capacities. Schemes like the Smart Cities mission, laden with resources and pushed through as policy priorities from the top down, mostly focus on infrastructure development and ignore the provisions of the Act for the inclusion of street vendors in city planning. Third, at the social level, the prevailing image of the world class city tends to be exclusionary. It marginalizes and stigmatizes street vendors as obstacles to urban development instead of acknowledging them as legitimate contributors to the urban economy. These challenges are reflected in city designs, urban policies, and public perceptions of neighborhoods. Stop.